Hello everybody, I'm Derek Schneider, president of the History Makers Academy and founder of the History Makers Society. I'm so happy to be coming to you by video. I wish I could be there at your incredible Insight conference. I have to be home in Canada, unfortunately, but at least I can come to you by video. I'm privileged to speak to you today. I want to give a special greeting to Nation Radiance International in partnership with the Nigerian Students Association. So greetings from a Canadian. And I love the theme of this year's conference, which is Answers to Life's Most Difficult Questions. You know, I think that's a great title because people are looking for more than just inspiration nowadays. People want execution. People want results. People want their questions answered because they want to move forward with the goals and dreams that they have, either for their own personal life, their families, their country, their projects, whatever. And so that's why I'm happy to talk to you for the next half hour or so on the topic of from vision to execution. From vision to execution. There is no shortage of people on this planet who have big vision. Maybe they have some goals, maybe they have some dreams, some aspirations, but the gap between those who can take vision all the way to execution, that gap is big, unfortunately. In fact, what separates the successful and significant from those who are always talking is the ability to translate dreams and vision to execution, carrying it right to the end. We talk a lot in our society today. We put up statuses on Facebook. We tell our friends and colleagues our big goals. We love to dream, but actually taking something to execution is why such a small percentage of people are actually impacting the world on a great scale. You know, this was something that I as a leader became obsessed with because coming from religious background, I heard a lot of talk of dreams, visions, people saying even God told me that I'm to do this, but very little results, especially when it comes to wanting to transform our nations and impacting culture. Everybody wants to leave a thumbprint in history. Everybody wants to be a history maker. What separates those who talk about it from those who do it? And I have a hunch that you're at this conference not just to be inspired, but to be equipped with the tools to translate vision to execution. So I want to jump right into this by giving you the definition of a term called organized thought or organized thinking. If you're taking notes in the conference hall today, you're going to want to write down that term, organized thought. Now, an organized thought is very different than a dream or vision. It's even different than an inspired thought. We all have ideas that come to us at different times. We see something, we catch a glimpse of light, and we have this inspirational thought of what we want to do, and somehow we sit down and wait for the universe or God or whatever to magically make that thing happen. Well, that's just not the way the world works, and that's not how great people do great things. Organized thought, I want to define it. It's defined as this. An organized thought is a mental image that you can see beginning and end with the steps in between. An organized thought is a mental image where you can see the beginning, so the starting point, and the goal, but also the systematic steps to get from point A to Z. I said systematic steps for a reason because we don't just do random when going from idea to goal. Each step must be a prescribed step that takes place after you've completed the other. You've got to be able to see the big picture all at a glance. This is what they sometimes call the eagle eye. The eagle in the sky is able to see the broad perspective and also a tiny little mouse that's running around in the grass all the way down on earth. That's the eye that a leader who wants to execute his or her vision has to have. Some of you may have heard of the famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky. I'm more likely to know this because I'm Canadian and we love that sport. But Wayne Gretzky was hailed and is hailed as one of the greatest hockey players to ever play the game. They would say that Wayne Gretzky had an eye not for chasing the puck, but he would go to where the puck was going to go. He had that eye. He could see where the puck was going to go, and he would be there by the time it got there. They also say of him that he could be heading towards the net about to score a goal and be able to tell you who's buying a hot dog on the third floor of the arena. He had an eye for the big picture and the details at the same time. If you want to take big vision to execution, you've got to become detail-oriented. I hope I'm challenging you a little bit so far. So organized thinking is the ability to see the whole picture and the process and details that have to come in between. This is called an organized thought. Organized thinking is absolutely necessary for high-level management and also the execution of an idea that you have. I imagine if you've come to this conference, it's because you have a certain mentality, a certain skill set, and you want to execute your dream or vision. Well, organized thinking is how you have to begin to play the game. Many of you may have heard of a book by Jim Collins, I believe, called From Good to Great. From Good to Great. This book essentially did a study on great companies that gained momentum and came into breakthrough, which made them extraordinary companies. One of them was Walt Disney. And they did it in a time of economic difficulty, challenges, whatever. They actually were able to take their company from even a place of such deficit and borderline bankruptcy to extraordinary results. Why? This study did an analysis, and they discovered that there were 3 things necessary for somebody or an organization to go from good to great, to grow from just mediocre and ordinary to exponential success. The 3 things that they discovered were needed were, number 1, disciplined people, number 2, disciplined thought, and number 3, disciplined action. I want to replace the word discipline with organized. Therefore, it would read as this. Number 1, organized people, organized thinking, and organized actions. These 3 components are actually making up the ability for an organization to actually deliver and execute. You need these 3 things. We have to be disciplined. We have to be people who are organized, who know how to organize our schedule, who know how to organize an idea and then translate it to paper. These are disciplined people with disciplined thinking who are able to actually execute disciplined action. So I want to give you some points, while we have the time here, on how to translate vision to reality. How to translate your vision to reality. If you're a disciplined person, you've got an organized thought, and now you're going to step into organized action. How do we fully translate this vision to reality? Number one, you must have a divine inspiration or an enlightened thought or idea. Every revolution, this is the principle, every revolution starts with a thought. When you have a profound thought, that is the beginning of what it takes to have vision in a way that you can eventually execute. You've got to have a unique idea. You can't just be competing with others and come up with a product people have already come up with in the past. You've got to have an original thought. Thomas Edison, of course, had an original thought. Thomas Edison later on went on to invent the light bulb. One of the things he would do to try to maximize that opportunity to have original thought was he would sit in his laboratory, and he found that when he would first wake up, he would have this kind of aha moment. The light bulb would go off, so to speak. And he would sit in his laboratory, and he had an armchair, and he would not cease working. He was a disciplined man, and he held a metal spoon in his hand and put a foil tin just on the floor beneath him. And he sat there in that armchair, and he would work tirelessly. And when he would begin to fall asleep, eventually he would drift off, The spoon would drop from his hand, hit the tinfoil, wake him up, and he would get his idea. We, as people who want to eventually create or invent something new, we've got to know where we get our inspiration from and how to get an original idea. That's number one. Number two, that inspiration, idea, or mental picture must become an organized thought. We talked about that already, being able to see that now from point A to Z, a defined thought, so to speak, you could call it. A clear picture, not just a mental image, but a thought that can be expressed and explained, and you can formulate it clearly. One thing I love to do as a coach or a leader is when people come up to me and give me their great ideas or what they plan to do, I love to ask them the tough questions. What about the budget? When are you going to begin? What about manpower? What resources are you starting with? What will you do if this happens? I love to challenge their thinking because in challenging them, they have to come up with solutions for the problems that will stop them from actual execution. So when we talk about an inspiration or your big idea becoming organized, this also includes writing it down. A number of years ago, I had an idea that I wanted to convey a training school and convey a message to the world, and I knew I would need television to do that. I didn't have the money for television. I didn't even have any connections to our national network. In fact, we didn't even have a national network that was 24 hours. I was reaching out to the Christian community. That was my base at the time. And do you know, I included that idea in a system. I wrote it down. In fact, I wrote down how many homes I wanted this TV show to be in. And some can call it faith, or some can call it, the universe responding to your vision. All I can tell you is I wrote that thing down in an organized way, and I began to believe that one day I would have that show. Do you know, within 2 years, we actually had a television network launched in our country by one of our history maker graduates. And I was given the opportunity to have airtime on it to launch a TV show. Well, what was I short of? I was short the $30,000 that I would need to secure a 2-year contract. Within a few days, I was able to secure the $30,000, although I didn't have it myself. But I had seen this as part of my strategy when I created my 10-year plan. I want to prove this to you with a study that was done by Harvard Business, the Harvard Business graduates. They did a study. During the study, it was found 84% of these business graduates, when they graduated, had no specific goals at all. They just were graduating with good grades. They were ready to take on the world, but they had no specific goals. That's 84% of these Harvard graduates. 13%, they had a goal, but they didn't write it down. It was something they kept in their mind. It was their idea. They talked about it. They could see it in their vision, but they never wrote it down. 3% of these business school graduates wrote down the goals in an organized way. They created a systematic plan. They included their idea and how they hoped to achieve it. 10 years later, that's the length of this study, the results were shocking but predictable. Here they are. The 13% of students who had goals, so they had goals, but they didn't actually write it down. The 13% of students who had goals were earning on average 2 times more than 84% who had no goals at all. That's somewhat predictable. They had a goal, they went after it, they were earning on average 2 times more than the 84% who had no goals at all. Now watch this. 3% of the students who had clear, written down goals in an organized way were earning on average 10 times more than the whole 97% combined. The proof is in the figures right there. Let me just, if you didn't catch that, I'm going to say it again. At the end of 10 years, 13% of the students who had goals but didn't write them down were earning on average twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. 3% of the students who had clear, systematic, organized goals written down were earning on average 10 times more than the other 97% combined. In layman's terms, write it down. Get an idea. Write it down in an organized way. Step 1 all the way to step 10. Plan A all the way to Z. This is the way we have to be. Number 3. The same inspired idea that you have must be put into the minds of the people around you or your team. These people have to be able to receive your vision, be able to see it clearly. You've got the difficult task of passing on your inspired idea to them. Now, they may not be able to execute it yet, but key to execution, key to taking dream to vision is you're probably going to need a team. The inspired thought is very important for a team dynamic. Now, where the wheels start to fall off the cart is we think that just because our staff or team have heard your great idea, we think that now they're carrying it with the same passion that you are. No, almost never. Generally, the people who you are wanting to execute your vision for you will not be carrying that idea with the same passion that you are. Somebody else doesn't feel as pregnant as the woman who's actually carrying the baby. This is why we have the challenging task of translating vision very clearly. You know, I could think of a Russian word, seeing I'm in Ukraine. When a woman says to me in the kitchen, would I like a yabloko? Well, what is a yabloko? Would I like a yabloko? And I don't understand what a yabloko is. I'm hearing her words. I can maybe even write down the letters I think she's using, but unless she draws a picture or actually pulls out an apple, which is a yabloko, if she doesn't show me the apple, I don't know what yabloko means. And this is the challenge we have as leaders. How do you take what you're seeing and so inspire your team that they carry that vision with the same fervor and passion that you do? This is the challenge. If you can, through repetition and constant, sharing the vision clearly to a team, if you can so plant that in them, that inspiration actually becomes a type of energy and fuel for them to run with it. Andy Stanley, great speaker, leader, pastor, motivational speaker, he says and coined the phrase, vision leaks. Vision leaks. What does that mean? That means that people generally don't hold on to vision too long. He says you've got to state vision repeatedly, consistently, and clearly. Repeatedly, consistently, and clearly. Your inspired thought must become a reality for your team so that you can create energy and critical mass so that they can accomplish your vision and carry it out practically. All right, let's move on to number 4, translating vision to reality. When you are putting that organized thought into the minds of people, don't just give them the big picture. It's not enough to just inspire them. Give them the details. Show them the system. Walk them through the process. They're not going to get it the first time. State it consistently, clearly, and with quality. State the vision consistently, clearly, and with quality. Reveal to them the details of how you think this can be done. If they don't see their part in the process, they're not going to stick around long. If they don't know they're valued, if they don't know that, hey, their part in the system is crucial to the execution of that vision that inspired them, they're just not going to stick with what you're doing, and you're going to be constantly replacing people, and you're not going to be able to take vision to execution. All right, number 5. Don't stop developing yourself even when your projects begin to succeed. Don't stop developing yourself, even when your projects start to succeed. That's the danger that we as leaders can fall into very easily, is we have some level of success or our schedule fills up and we just get too busy to keep developing ourselves. The problem with ceasing to develop yourself is that when your organization or project begins to have some level of success, you will find you'll hit a ceiling until you learn something more. I was very bad with branding, marketing. I didn't understand it. I didn't even have a Facebook, nor did I want to grow in that area. The challenge for me was that time and life moved on without me. I didn't learn some of the necessary skills that I needed to help our academy graduates launch their projects and programs in society. So what did I have to do? I had to learn about branding. I had to be intentional about it. I had to sit down with somebody and have them teach me about Facebook, how to use Hootsuite, how to use this and that. It was a whole new world for me, but I needed to learn it so that I could properly leverage what was out there to further launch my organization where it needed to go. Again, this is what separates the men from the boys. If you are a consistent student of life, even if your project fails, you'll just create a new one. Even if somebody quits, you'll just inspire someone else. Your job as a leader is to be constantly learning so that no matter what project you launch sinks or swims, you'll create a new one. Good friend of mine, business person, he said, I heard that 9 out of 10 startup companies didn't succeed. So I decided to create 10 startup companies, knowing one will succeed. And he had to learn a lot and manage a lot to make this happen. I want to give you meat and potatoes today, that this is the kind of diligence that's required to move something ahead. Don't stop being a student. Number 6, learn the art of reproducing your abilities in your team or people around you so that they can do the same thing you do with equal quality. Learn to reproduce your abilities in the people around you so that they can do the same thing and reproduce those projects, to produce things the way you do. Help them to see the way you see. Help them to understand the level of excellence that you as an organization are going to function at. That is crucial. But even more than that is the ability to notice and spot their passions, their abilities, and help them to strengthen them. Bring the best out of your team. That's going to help you execute, especially if you're working with volunteers. Maybe you're starting a movement towards something in a city. Maybe you're wanting to give back to the community. Maybe you're wanting to solve some problems on even a civil or national level. You're going to want to inspire people to do what they do best. Notice what their skill set is, notice what their gifts and abilities are, and inspire them to execute where they fit best. Many times as leaders, we see ourselves as jack of all trades. Well, you know what? You should be master of one, and you're going to have some people on your team that also are very good at something. You need to be able to not only appreciate their skill set, but to highlight it, encourage it, and even promote them, celebrate them in front of the rest of the team so that they feel they're part of a moving, working organism that just wouldn't function the same without them. Well, let's do a little recap because we've got just a few left. But number 1 in how to translate vision to reality was that you must have a divine inspiration or big idea. Every revolution starts with a thought. Number 2, that inspiration or great idea must become an organized thought. Number 3, that same inspired idea must be able to be planted into the minds of the people around you. Not just inspire them in a staff meeting, but so that they carry that thing the way you do. Because when you're not around, you're going to want them working with quality and precision and passion to execute the vision. Number 4, when you're putting the organized thought into the minds of people, Don't just plant the big picture, but reveal the details and the processes. Show them the strategy of how you plan to do it. Number 5, don't stop developing yourself even when your projects are succeeding. Learn something new. As you grow, your organization will grow. Number 6, reproduce your abilities in your people so that they can do the same thing and so that they can produce the way you produce. That's number 6. Number 7, translate their part in the vision clearly. Translate their part in the vision clearly. Write down their role in the plan in detail and teach it to your team. You know, if you're somebody that has big vision and organized thinking and you can see the big picture and the details, don't think that your people can see the same thing all the time. Some people learn differently. Some people, it's not enough just to tell them to go do this, but you've actually got to map it out for them, have a portfolio, have a working plan of what their part is in the system. Show it to them. Translate their part in the vision clearly. Write down their role. Teach them to be effective in their part. Organize then effectively the actions of those people around you and put them in their position so that they can begin to execute. You need a team of people who know exactly their place in the system and what they're to do. And they also must know that as they are doing it all together, it creates an organized action. Disciplined people, disciplined actions. That's what we're looking for. All right, number 8. Make their organized actions become a mass system of action. Make their organized actions become a mass system of action. What do I mean by that? When we talk about a mass system of action, think in terms of an airport. An airport is really one massive system that is built and put together by small systems. You've got baggage handling, you've got tickets, you've got, any given airport has hundreds of systems all functioning together to produce an organized action and reach a goal. You as a leader have to take the time to evaluate your process of doing things. Evaluate how does this piece work and how does it fit with this? How does this piece fit with this one? Where are we not as efficient in this area? How do we get the whole thing functioning in an organized way? So that make their organized actions become a mass system of action. You know, there's a great proverb that says, go and look at the ant, you sluggard. The ant is a great example of organized action. Ants carry greater than they carry a great load. They're able to follow the leader, and they're able to function in a strategic, organized way to the degree that if a twig even falls in the way of the ant, that they will find a way around that twig, around that problem, and they still accomplish the vision, which is to sow in season, and so they have something for during the winter. That's how we have to be. Look at the ant. Number 9, teach your people and your team to convert everything they do into a systematic way, into a system, you could say. System of action, system of thought, system of action. That's the way it's got to go. Every goal that you set as a team to accomplish, you've got to be able to organize it in such a way to where it becomes a system. This is the key to have constant execution. One thing that we do with History Makers Academy is, especially because often in your organization you maybe don't have people on salary yet, or you're not paying people, you're working with volunteers. The problem with that is volunteers in general come and go. And so you're often having to retrain new people all the time. What we did to alleviate this problem was every position that somebody had to play, they received a portfolio. That portfolio gave the details of the system of that position. When that person does what they're to do in detail. So that if a volunteer quit or moved on or whatever, They had a binder still in hand, or we had a binder still in hand, so that when someone new came into the picture, a new volunteer, we were able to hand them the binder. Here's the system. Familiarize yourself with it and take your place in the total, the organization itself. So that's what we do, and that's what most companies do. They have a portfolio, they have a system, they have a binder. That makes training so much easier. It expedites the process, and you're not constantly having to train people and envision people. So teach your people to convert everything into a system. Remember this formula. System of thought equals system of action. System of thought equals system of action. Second last one, number 10, we'll give you 11 today. Valuing the details. Valuing the details. Ask a person who's riding a bike the importance of that tiny bolt that's in one crucial area of that bike. Ask somebody who's building a house the importance of certain pillars in the right places. You've just got to be detail-oriented when it comes to building an organization or doing something to change the world. You've got to love the details. You might not be the person that's right there on site managing some of those details. You don't want to be a micromanager, but you've got to have an eye for the details. You've got to care about the details. Most Fortune 500 company leaders are very similar in their ability to notice details and care about details. There are two types of people, those that have big vision but also properly manage the details, and then those who have big vision but are totally blind to the details of an organization. I heard it best said this way: a Fortune 500 company CEO will walk into their building on the ground floor. They've got to go all the way up to the top floor where their office is. They've arrived on time, and they will stop by the man who is putting in a new light bulb in the lobby and inspect and notice if it's done right or if they can help in some way. They are people who notice details. We have to be this way. To do anything significant on the earth today, you've got to become not just big picture, but detail oriented. Let's jump down to our last point today in translating vision to execution. You've got to be a problem solver. Be a problem solver. Give your people problems to solve. Problems often make people anxious. Insecure leaders have anxiety over problems. But in actuality, when you give your people problems to solve, when you give your team a problem to solve, you actually are showing that you have faith in them. You're trusting them with something, and they will want to solve that problem. Make it part of the culture of your organization that we are people who are attracted to problems. We love the opportunity to solve a problem. In any company, you want a promotion, you want a raise, ask your boss for problems to solve, look for problems to solve, look for ways to make something more efficient, and you will find if you can become a problem solver, you will slowly work your way up the ladder until you are the leader. The great leaders of today are those who solve problems. The reality is, when you ask for more work, you might think, hey, I don't want more work put on my plate. Well, those are the people who get promoted, the people who look for work to do. So create that culture within your organization so that people want to help execute your vision, so that people want to stay hours later, get up early, they want to solve problems that come along the way. They're not waiting for somebody else to do it, and they're not waiting for you to do it. Somebody who's a problem solver. Make this part of the culture of your organization. So these are some helpful keys to translating vision to execution. Much of it hinges on your ability to have a team, and then so instill in that team the vision itself, the steps you're going to take to get there, and the execution. I want to thank you for having me today. I hope your conference is going well. I wish I was there in person. I know there are a host of other speakers that are going to be there, and I applaud them, and I'm so glad that you're there and going to learn so much. So thank you for allowing me to be with you today. I hope the rest of the conference is a success, and I'll see you again soon. God bless.